Welcome to Break the Loop. This is the place where shadows transform into personal power. Here we break the loop, shift timelines, and step into the highest version of ourselves. And today, you're stepping into one of the most important skills in this entire transformation. Shadow tracking. If episodes 1, 2, and 3 helped you understand what loops are, where they come from, and how the shadow shapes your patterns, episode 4 teaches you how to actually see the loop happening in real time. This episode is about noticing the exact moment your shadow steps into the driver's seat and begins steering your emotions, your reactions, and your decisions. When you can recognize the shadow as it activates, you gain the power to stop the loop before it takes over. This is the skill that creates real transformation, awareness in motion. Shadow tracking is the practice of noticing the emotional shift that happens inside you before your patterns take over. It is the art of catching your shadow in the first seconds of activation, before the loop spirals into familiar reactions. Shadow tracking is not about overthinking, analyzing, or judging yourself. It is about noticing with clarity. You are learning to recognize that moment when something small feels big, or when something present feels strangely familiar, or when your body reacts faster than your mind. Shadow tracking is the skill that lets you separate the current moment from emotional memory. It's the difference between reacting from your past and responding from your higher timeline. There are 3 components to shadow tracking: the activation, the response, and the narrative. Shadow activation is the first spark. The moment something touches an old emotional wound or memory, you might feel a sudden shift in your body, a tightening in your chest, a drop in your stomach, or an emotional spike that feels disproportionate. Shadow response comes next. This is the behavior or coping strategy that follows the activation. It might look like shutting down, withdrawing, overreacting, trying to fix or control, getting defensive, or abandoning yourself. And finally, the shadow narrative is the story your mind creates after the reaction. It's the explanation, the justification, or the meaning you attach to what happened. When you can identify all 3 components, activation, response, narrative, you can see the anatomy of your loop clearly. And when you see the anatomy, the loop loses its power. Emotional echo work is the understanding that you do not react to the present moment. You react to the emotional memory stored inside your shadow. Emotional echoes are the sensations and feelings that rise in you when something in the present triggers a similarity to something in the past. It's not the situation that affects you. It's the emotional echo of what happened before. This is why a calm conversation can suddenly feel overwhelming, why a single comment can feel like an attack, or why a small moment can feel like abandonment or rejection. Emotional echo work teaches you to recognize that when your reactions are bigger than the moment, it's because your shadow is replaying an old emotional state. Once you can separate the echo from the present, you create space for clarity, compassion, and power. Your shadow reveals itself the moment your reaction shifts beyond what the situation requires. You might feel emotional intensity that seems too strong for the moment, emotional shutdown, where you suddenly go numb or silent, body sensations such as tightness, heaviness, or heat, or a sudden identity shift where you feel like a younger version of yourself. You may feel the urge to escape, to fix, to control, to hide, or to overreact. These reactions are not irrational. They are signs that your shadow has stepped forward and is trying to protect you based on old emotional memory. Recognizing these signs doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you are waking up to the truth of what's happening inside you. There are moments when your behavior clearly reveals that you are in a loop. You might find yourself blaming someone for your emotional state instead of recognizing your own echo. You might project old fears or insecurities onto the present moment. You might overreact to something small because it reminds you of something much bigger, or you might abandon yourself completely, staying quiet, shrinking, people-pleasing, or pushing your own needs aside. These behaviors aren't failures. They are indicators. They show you that your shadow is active, and when you can recognize them without judgment, you weaken the loop instantly. Before your shadow becomes a thought or a reaction, it becomes a sensation in your nervous system. That is the earliest moment where you can catch the loop. Your breath might shorten, your shoulders might tense, your chest might tighten, your stomach might drop, or your heart rate might shift. You might feel heat rising, pressure building, or your body collapsing inward. This is your nervous system remembering something that scared or overwhelmed you in the past. When you learn to pay attention to these physical sensations, you gain access to the earliest doorway out of the loop. Tracking your nervous system signals is one of the most powerful tools for shadow integration, because the body reacts before the mind does. The first technique in shadow tracking is the emotional pause. The moment you feel your body shift or your emotions spike, pause for just a few seconds. Do nothing. Don't react. Don't speak. Don't defend or explain. Simply become aware. This pause interrupts the automatic loop and brings your consciousness into the moment. Breathe slowly. Feel your feet on the ground. Name what you are feeling. This is fear, or this is shame, or this is sadness, or this is disappointment. Naming the feeling brings your mind and body into alignment. Then ask yourself, is this emotion about the moment, or is it an emotional echo from my shadow? This simple pause turns a reactive moment into a conscious moment, and conscious moments break loops. The second technique is the pattern lens. When you feel activated, ask yourself, what does this remind me of? This question bypasses your defenses and goes straight to your emotional memory. It helps you recognize the echo instead of the surface-level trigger. You might realize the feeling is similar to something from childhood, a past relationship, a situation where you felt abandoned, or a time when you felt ignored, unseen, or rejected. When you see the pattern instead of the moment, the shadow loses its grip. The story dissolves, the emotional charge softens, and suddenly the reaction becomes understandable, not overwhelming. The third technique is the identity check. When you feel activated, ask yourself, who am I becoming right now? This question reveals whether your shadow identity is taking over. You might notice yourself becoming the pleaser, the ghost, the performer, the controller, the fixer, or the self-doubter. Or you might notice yourself shrinking into a younger, emotional version of you. The moment you identify the identity you are slipping into, you reconnect with your higher self. This technique interrupts the illusion of the shadow identity and brings you back to your chosen identity. Identity awareness is identity power. The fourth technique is tracking the body signal. Your body always knows before your mind does. When you feel tension, tightness, heat, numbness, or pressure, pause and ask, what is my body trying to protect me from right now? This question transforms the body's reaction into communication. Your body might be trying to protect you from conflict, rejection, disappointment, discomfort, vulnerability, or emotional overwhelm. When you listen instead of react, your body softens. The awareness diffuses the charge. The moment becomes clear. This technique teaches you to treat your body as your guide, not your enemy. Let's bring shadow tracking into real-life moments. Imagine you text someone and they take longer than usual to reply. Your stomach drops. You suddenly feel anxious. You start imagining they're losing interest or pulling away. This is not about the message. This is an emotional echo of past abandonment. Another example, someone gives you feedback and your body instantly tightens. You feel defensive or ashamed. This reaction is not about the present feedback. It's an echo of times you were criticized or punished as a child. Or imagine you're in an argument and you shut down completely. You go quiet, numb, and small. This is not the adult you shutting down. It's the child in you trying to avoid emotional danger. When you track these moments with clarity, everything shifts. You stop fighting the person in front of you and begin understanding the emotional past behind you. When you learn to track your shadow in real time, the loop begins to fall apart. The intensity decreases, the emotional charge softens, the narrative dissolves. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from awareness. Your nervous system relaxes, your higher self emerges. The shadow no longer hijacks your identity. The loop can no longer run on autopilot. And for the first time, you experience freedom. The freedom to choose a new response, a new emotion, a new identity, and ultimately a new timeline. This is where transformation becomes real. Shadow tracking is not about controlling your emotions, it's about understanding them so deeply that the loop can no longer survive in unconsciousness. Now that you know how to identify the shadow in real time, you're ready for the next step. In episode 5, I'm going to teach you how to break the loop the moment it begins, how to interrupt the emotional autopilot, dissolve the old narrative, and shift your identity from shadow to sovereignty in seconds. Episode 5 is where everything becomes practical and powerful. If shadow tracking is the awareness, episode 5 is the transformation. This concludes episode 4 of our 15-part transformation series. You now understand how to spot your shadow in real time, how to identify emotional echoes, and how to track the earliest signs of your loops. In the next episode, we'll take the next step and learn exactly how to break the loop from the inside out. Until then, break the loop, shift the timeline, and become your higher self.